So for more on this, let's bring in the head of news at Snapchat. He's also the host of Snapchat's political show, Good Luck America. Peter Hamby, thank you so much for being with us tonight. You just heard from Elex and his analysis. Let's get yours. How did the governor pull this off handily?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex's analysis is dead on. Everyone should read it. If you look at the exit polls, people who decided about the recall before the month of August, it was about 60-40 against the recall, still favoring Newsom. But if you look at the month of August, that number against the recall jumped by almost 7 points, which suggests that the month of August was crucial for the Newsom campaign. And we know that, and it is for probably two significant reasons. One, they woke up Democrats who probably weren't paying attention. College-educated white folks who maybe voted for Biden and were a little tuned out in an off-year election, black and brown voters. And then two, Larry Elder emerged at the front of the pack among the options to replace him. And the Newsom campaign ably defined him, sometimes by name, sometimes not, as a Trumpy MAGA figure who's going to take the state back, who's going to roll back vaccine requirements, mask mandates. And, you know, again, if you look at exit polls, the majority of Californians and the majority of Californians who voted against the recall were firmly in favor of Governor Newsom's pandemic restrictions. And that month was crucial for the Newsom campaign. They not only woke up their own campaign, they woke up the voters of California that they needed to show up to vote.
Well, and the other thing that was happening, Peter, while that was happening, was this surge of the Delta variant all over the country. And we got real-time look at different approaches to it. There was the approach in Texas and Florida where they do not have a lot of the requirements that are in California. And at this moment, their health outcomes are worse. They are seeing increases in hospitalizations and increases in deaths that we're not seeing here in California. And that's part of the reason why in the last segment, we heard the governor basically saying that this was a win for vaccine mandates. President Biden making a similar statement today. What does this mean for the rest of the country and in terms of the way that Democrats politically treat COVID?
I think that Newsom and Biden understand that they are on the right side of popular opinion here. President Biden making his rule last week for the Department of Labor to require employers to either mandate their employees get vaccines or be subject to mandatory testing. They're on the right side of public opinion about this because people are sick of the pandemic. They're sick of it. They're over it. And they don't want to risk any possibility that we're not going to be able to travel over the holidays, that we're not going to be able to go to bars or that beer garden that we just saw in the A block out in the Arts District. Like, people want this stuff to be over. They want their kids to be able to go back to school. That is just fundamental to this equation. But I do think there's a little bit of a limit. The national commentary last night was about how national Democrats can learn this lesson from California about running on vaccine mandates and safer COVID policies. Sure, that's important in the short term for Democrats. Look at the state of Virginia, where I'm from. There's a governor's race there, a much more competitive state than California. The Democratic nominee in that race is running hard on vaccine mandates and requirements, and the Republican is not. And that could have an outcome in that race. But looking ahead to 2022, who knows where the pandemic is going to be at that point? So taking a long-term, trying to divine any kind of long-term answer out of this is a game I think the national media likes to play. But, there were plenty of local elements to this race. Homelessness and climate change were the second and third biggest issues in this race. And those are very California things that they aren't really talking about in like Iowa or Florida.
And we can tell that Peter is a former TV news producer, that he said A block, which was the first segment of the show for people that are speaking TV news. All right, Phil Shuman, now to you, another veteran of TV news.
All right, so Peter, one question and then a follow-up. The first one, my children know the answer to, but a lot of our viewers may not. What exactly is Snapchat, and how does it work?
Well, Dad, listen up. Snapchat is, for context, bigger than Twitter by almost 2 times. We have more users between the ages of 13 and 34 in the United States than Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger combined. Snapchat is, I hope a lot of viewers know, a communications platform where you talk to your friends and family, you put funny lenses on your face, but we also have tons of content on Snapchat, and I joined Snap from CNN almost 6 years ago to help build out news content for a generation that isn't necessarily, subscribing to the New York Times, and they're not necessarily watching CNN every day. And so I have a show on Snapchat. ESPN is on Snapchat. The Washington Post is on Snapchat. And the goal is to deliver news to that generation.
So when it comes to politics and the recall campaigns and election campaigns, how, in your view, since you came from traditional mainstream news media, how has social media really revolutionized politics?
I mean, in every way. In 2019, according to a study from eMarketer, for example, time spent on mobile screens surpassed time spent on television screens for the first time since the iPhone was invented. And it's just fundamental to our daily lives. I mean, you guys and myself, we all create the news and report on the news across all different platforms. Like the primary avenue for that for y'all is broadcast, but you're also on Twitter. Elex is writing for Medium. Like, we're all over the place. And, in terms of political campaigns, a lot of people have been slow on the uptake, and they think that you can win a campaign simply by running television ads or newspaper ads like they used to back in the day. But the smart campaigns, and I think the Newsom campaign actually did this, leveraged influencers to get the message out. They started running a ton of Facebook ads. I spend a lot of time on YouTube every day doing research and got bombarded with pre-roll ads from Elder campaign, but also the Stop the Recall campaign. So I think, the internet has revolutionized campaigns in the same way it's revolutionized sports and entertainment and every other facet of our society. It's just fundamentally our phones are the first thing we look at when we wake up and the last thing we look at before we go to bed, like it or not. And politicians have to be in those spaces to compete, especially for people, not just young people, but Black and brown people spend more time on the internet than with traditional media. And I think that's really important for Democratic voters specifically.
All right, looking ahead to June, that's 9 months from now, just in 9 months. Are we going to see a repeat of September 14th all over again when it comes to the primary?
I mean, I defer to you guys on that. I think that you can look at this recall 2 ways. One, Newsom, and voters I've talked to, and I'm sure voters you guys have talked to have said this, Newsom has something to worry about next year. He can't just play it safe. This was a warning shot that he has to focus more on homelessness, on crime, but also he has to do better about making people happy with these lockdown policies. The other way to look at it, and maybe the Newsom campaign will spin it this way, is I beat the Trump beast. I beat Republicans, and he can really try to present himself as kind of this, Trump slaying California Democrat, the lead of the resistance. Some people might not remember, but in 2012, Scott Walker, the Republican governor of Wisconsin, faced a recall election, and he beat it back. And he used that to raise a ton of money with Republicans around the country. It really gave him a brand name with activists around the country. And he ran for president in 2015 and 2016. Didn't work out very well for him, but it at least helped him build a national profile. And as much as people around the country know who Gavin Newsom is, it's mostly because he's the handsome governor of California. It's not necessarily because of his policies or what he's done. And maybe the recall has given him a larger profile and maybe some more power heading into the profile or to the primaries next year. I'd be interested to see if any Democrat has the kind of juice to challenge him.
I think it much more unlikely because the margin was so huge. Our colleague Melanie Mason at the LA Times did a great article about the fact that the Newsom campaign studied that Walker campaign in beating back the recall and actually devised much of their strategy based off of what Scott Walker, a conservative Republican, did, which is making it all about the opponent and trying to make it a partisan fight, and that's what they did, and that's how they were able to win. Peter Hamby, thank you so much. You can check out his show on Snapchat. It's called Good Luck America. You got to download the app to watch. Phil Shuman is watching it every day. You can tell from his question right there. Peter's also a writer on Puck News as well, where you can check out his work as well. He wrote a great article on the recall there. Thanks so much for coming on for the first time.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, guys. This is great. Appreciate it.